Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Office Podcast. I'm your host, Hassan. Just want to thank everyone that tuned in to the last episode where we talked about Jim Halpert, one of my top 5 characters of all time on the show and all time in all of television. I have to say, I'm not going to mince my words. I think Jim Halpert is definitely top 5 characters of all time. You've got Tony Soprano, you've got others in that category of top 5 characters of all time in any show, and Jim Halpert for me is definitely up there. But today we are talking about none other than Mr. Beat Farmer, Mr. Private Security, Mr. Sheriff's Deputy. Oh yes, we're talking about Dwight K Schrute and why he was such an important character to the show. And there's a couple fan theories that I read up on, which I'm going to get into. I'm definitely going to get into those because they've been the most interesting out of all of the characters I've researched. Obviously, Michael Scott, very interesting character. Kevin Malone, my favorite, of course. Jim Halpert, yeah, there was a couple fan theories, and I found out a theory of my own literally on the podcast. I was so excited. I didn't want to ruin the flow that I was in on the last podcast, but him being jealous of Dwight, I literally thought about that as I was on the show. So today, like I said, we're going to talk about Dwight and what I think of him and what kind of role he played in the whole show. So get comfortable because I think it's going to be a good one for sure. But Dwight, man, what can I even say about Dwight? Dwight is one of those characters you only get once in a lifetime in a show. You're never going to really see a Dwight again. I think other shows have tried to have a Dwight before Dwight even existed, and then even post-Dwight. But I think Dwight's weirdness, I think his love of weird stuff, his whole weird aura was just the perfect character to have in any show. And I think for me, Dwight was definitely the main character of the show. I don't think it was Michael Scott. I don't think it was Jim Halpert. I think that Dwight K Schrute was the main character. And here's why. I believe he has appeared in every single episode of the show. He was also a big part of the show when Michael left. So we all assumed that Michael Scott was the main character of the show, when in actual fact, it was our old friend Dwight Schrute. Because after season 7, as I've mentioned in previous episodes, it loses its rhythm, but it doesn't die. Like any other show where you've had a big character like Michael leave, the show is in, quite a dramatic decline. Not like a steady decline, it's quite dramatic. And I think a little bit of the humor in the show was at a bit of a decline, but for me, Dwight definitely brought it back. I think him being in the latter seasons of the show definitely made it a lot more interesting. And he was definitely the main character. His life was explored the most out of any other character on the whole show. So, you saw Dwight getting married to, I forget her name, before Angela. It's not Elspeth. I don't know why I've got that name in my head. Whatever that lady's name is, he gets married to her. You see about his beet farming business. You know that he is the owner of the building after, I believe, season 5 or 6. And I think the whole kind of origin story is a lot more Dwight. It's not any other character. You don't really see Jim's origin, not even Michael Scott's. There's they kind of allude to it here and there. This is what he used to do. But Dwight, we find out exactly what he's been through. We find out why he's such a big character, why he is the way he is. Is he a secret millionaire because of the beet farm he owns? He says he owns quite a large amount of land. Obviously, we see a tiny bit of that when you have the parties at his house and stuff. But for me, his origin story is kind of highlighted a little bit, and his personal life is probably the only one that has the most airtime throughout the whole show. Also, I believe that Dwight being such a big part of the show made it the show that it is. I don't think any other character could fill his shoes. So, you had D'Angelo Vickers kind of leave after Michael left, and that was it. They kind of forgot about having a new funny guy. You had Andy come in trying to be like the Dwight of Stanford, Connecticut, but he wasn't. He tried to be, but he wasn't. Dwight is his own beast. And I think that's definitely something that should be explored by all fans of the show. I think although I say he's a main character, I think a lot of people don't rate him as highly. I think his moments where he is having his back and forth with Jim are some of the best in the show. I think the little relationships he has with people are the best in the show. His little stakeout with Toby when he was trying to find out whether Daryl was lying or not about being injured. That was one of the best sort of interactions that Toby had in the whole show, and it was with Dwight, and Dwight being so nice. So I think Dwight definitely is an underrated character. I didn't appreciate him in the beginning. I thought he was a bit weird, didn't really need him. But as the show progressed and as I've been watching it as the years have gone by, he is definitely a major part of the show, and I think he's left an impacting, a big impact on people. And for me, Dwight as well, I think Dwight is one of those characters I don't think you're going to see in a show again. I know I mentioned this before, but I don't think you're gonna see a character like Dwight again. And just to go on to a couple fan theories of Dwight. Well, no, this is my theory. This is my theory, and then I'll go on to some of the fan theories. So my theory is that Dwight and Jim are actually secret best friends. I think that when the cameras are around, Dwight and Jim pretend like they're not friends just for a bit of entertainment. I think they're made out to be arch enemies, or make themselves look like arch enemies in front of the cameras, because it makes better television. It makes things a bit more interesting. So my whole theory of Jim being jealous of Dwight, I might have just debunked my own theory, but I think that Jim and Dwight are actually best friends off camera. They have a very strong bond. They can only tolerate one another. They're always on sales calls together. And I think they joined the company at the same time, I believe. So, he was his best man at his wedding, things like that. So those are little minor details you can't really miss out and can't forget. Why did Dwight make Jim his best man? If he hated him so much and was pranked by him for so many years, why wouldn't he make someone else his best man? Why wouldn't he make Mose his best man, or anyone else? Obviously, they said why Mose wasn't, but anybody else. But he picked Jim, so that makes you, it's a bit of an eyebrow raiser. It makes you think why he did that. One really weird fan theory, like a really extremely weird one, is that Dwight has 2 DNA matches, and bear with me. So when Dwight tests the nappy, aka the diaper of the baby, to see whether it's his or not, it comes back as a negative match. So, it doesn't match his DNA. But later on, Angela admits that the baby is Dwight's. And one fan said that because in one of the episodes, Dwight mentions that he was meant to be a twin. But apparently when they checked, apparently he'd absorbed the other baby, and is now 2 babies? Something along the lines of that. If you go back to the episode, you can hear exactly what he said. So apparently he's got 2 DNA matches. He's got 2 DNA structures to him, which is a really random theory. But I thought I would just bring it up because we are talking about Dwight after all. And one of the other theories, which I definitely believe is plausible, is that, and I've mentioned this before, is that Dunder Mifflin is a front for the mob. Yes, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think that it is. Dunder Mifflin has 3 accountants. Usually, in a small business as Dunder Mifflin, Scranton, not the the company as a whole, but as the Scranton branch, you don't need more than 1 accountant. So why are there 3? What are they doing? Are they embezzling money? Are they laundering money? What's happening? And I think Dwight knows. I think Dwight knows what's going on. Obviously, he's very close with Angela very early on, and then obviously gets married to her at the end. So she must have told him, Dwight, we are a front for the mob. She's obviously seeing the numbers day in and day out. Kevin obviously is playing dumb, and I've mentioned why he does that in the past to kind of throw you off the scent of him being an accountant for the mob. But it makes you think there's 3 accountants for such a small company, and it makes sense. They could be embezzling money or laundering it for the mob. So that's been my favorite fan theory. I think it's definitely one that creates a lot of excitement around the show. I think obviously it being a comedy show, we forget that there's elements of, there's like serious things going on in the background, and that is definitely one of my favorite ones. And one of the other ones that I would like to touch on is that Dwight had a weird relationship with Pam. I think they were friends, but it was almost like a head nod to the person in the office that you kind of like as a friend, and it was just a very strange interaction between the two throughout the whole show. He was kind of nice to her, then he wasn't. He was mean, then he wasn't. When she was crying in the stairway, he consoled her and things like that. And it just makes you think, what were they also best friends outside of being filmed? I don't know. I don't like Pam. I know this is a reoccurring theme on this podcast about me not liking Pam, but I will get around to Pam. I will definitely get around to Pam and why I don't like her being part of the show. But anyways, guys, that is the show today. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate all your support. Wherever you're listening to this, if you could share it, like it, subscribe if you're on YouTube watching this, that would really mean a lot to me. As I said, I really enjoy these podcasts. This podcast is for those that love The Office. I don't know why anyone hasn't done this before, and if they have, shout me out, man. Come on, let's do something together. Let's make this community of The Office a larger one via a podcast. That would be amazing. Thank you so much for watching or listening. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace and love. Take care.